Hey guys, and welcome to the Command Tower. We make EDH deck decks. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out our TCG player affiliate link in the description below, and if you use it, helps out a lot. Today's deck is Volrath the Shapestealer deck. Volrath is a 7/5, says at the beginning of combat on your turn, putting -1/-1 counter up to one target creature. Then if you pay 1, till end of turn, he becomes a copy of target creature with a counter on it, except it's still 7/5 and it has that ability. So basically, the main goal of this deck is to put a lot of -1/-1 counters on things and win with Infect. So we're going to be doing a lot of that, and also putting 1/1 counters on our Infect creatures. Total price of this deck is $36.06. This is according to TCG player, does not include the price of basic lands. So let's get right into the deck. First off, we've got ramp. And since we have a lot of proliferate effects in the deck, we're going to have a lot of ramp that works off of counters. Powered auto generator, enters battlefield tapped. You can tap to put a charge counter on it and then add X mana of any one color or X number of charge counters on it. Everflowing Chalice has multi-kick over 2, and enters battlefield with a charge counter on it for each time it's kicked, and it taps your generic mana for each charge counter on it. Then Replicating Ring, taps your 1-mana navy color. At the beginning of upkeep, you put a night counter on it. Then if it has 8 or more night counters on it, remove all of them and create 8 colors, no artifact tokens, named Replicated Ring, with tap, add 1-mana navy color. All of these are going to work really well with all of our proliferate effects, because we'll just get a lot more mana. Pyramid of the Pantheon, you pay 2, tap it, add 1-mana navy color to your mana pool, put a bird counter on it, and then you can tap, add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool, but only if there are 3 more bird counters on it. So that's going to work great with Proliferate, because we can get to tapping for 3 quicker. Fertilid enters battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it. And you can pay 2, remove a 1/1 counter from it. Target player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield tab, then shuffles his library. Fastward Surge has kicker for 4. Search the library for 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. If the spell is kicked, put 2 1/1 counters on each creature you control. So it's ramp. And then you could also get 1/1 counters, which we're going to want for all of our Infect creatures. Rishkar, Pima Renegade. When it enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures, and each creature you control with a counter on it has tap, add green to your mana pool. So, once again, put 1/1 counters on our Infect creatures, and then also we can tap our creatures for mana. Yang Yagu, Wildcrafter, if I even said that right. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has tap, add 1-mana navy color. And if you -1, you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Then New Horizons, Enchant a land. When it enters the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Enchanted land has tap, add 2 mana of any one color. Then Plague Mirror, who has Infect, and then he's also ramp because he can tap for 1 generic mana. Then we've got some cards that can place -1/-1 counters on our opponent's creatures. And then we can either kill their creatures, or just copy them with our commander. Also, instead of saying -1/-1 counter like 20 times, I'm just going to say counter instead, because that's a lot easier. Virulent Wound, put a counter on target creature. When that creature is put into a graveyard this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. This is great, because our main way to win with this deck is to give a player 10 poison counters. So if we can start doing that turn 1, it's going to be really useful. Grim Affliction, put a counter on target creature, then Proliferate. Incremental Blight, put a counter on target creature, then 2 counters on another target creature, then 3 counters on a third target creature. Patria, Vizier of Poisons, when it deals combat damage to a player, you can put a counter on target creature. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green snake creature token with Death Touch. This is going to be really great, because even if we only have our commander out, we're going to get like 1 snake per turn, which may not seem good, but it has Death Touch, and people won't want to attack us then. Vidalican Anatomist, pay 3, tap it, put a counter on target creature, then you can tap or untap that creature. Serrated Biscalon, taps to put a counter on him, and then a counter on target creature. This may not seem great, but we have some 1/1 counter cards in this deck, so if we put 1 counters on him, we can put more -1/-1 counters on him. Obelisk Spider, Reach, when he deals combat damage to a creature, put a counter on that creature. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. So, it's going to help deal damage when you're placing counters on creatures. Cartouche of Ambition, enchanted creature control. When it enters battlefield, you can put a counter on target creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. Trigon of Corruption, enters battlefield with 3 charge counters on it. You can pay 2, tap it, put a charge counter on it. Or you can pay 2, tap it, remove a charge counter from it, put a counter on target creature. This is also going to be great because we're going to have Proliferate, so we can keep putting more counters on this, so we can keep removing counters from it. Splendid Agony, distribute 2 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures. And then we have 2 cards that are going to benefit off of us getting counters on creatures. So whenever a counter is placed on a creature, you can put a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token into play. The Nest of Scarabs, whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature, create that many 1/1 black insect creature tokens. So then we can just get a bunch of tokens off of putting -1/-1 counters on their creatures. Then we've got some creatures with Infect, which is going to end up being the main way we're going to want to stack. And the great part about these creatures with Infect is that if we put +1/+1 counters on them, we can copy them with our commander. And when our commander copies creatures, he still stays a 7/5. So if we can deal damage to somebody with our commander after we copy one of our Infect creatures, they're going to take 7 Infect. Blight Mamba, Infect, you can pay 2 to regenerate it. Bladed Agent, probably one of the best cards of the deck, has Infect, and it can't be blocked, so if we get a bunch of 1/1 counters on it, we can kill someone really quickly. Reaper of Sheolred, Infect, when a source deals damage to it, that source's controller gets a poison counter. Flesh Eater Imp, flying, Infect, sacrifice a creature, and it gets +1/+1 till end of turn, so if we really need to finish someone off, we can sacrifice a bunch of our creatures. Necropede has Infect. When it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you can put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Tainted Strike, target creature gets +1/+0 and gains Infect till end of turn, which then we could also use on our commander if we really want to. Viral Drake, flying, Infect, and then you can pay 4 and Proliferate. It's going to be really useful if we only need a couple more poison counters, but we can't deal damage. Core Prowler has Infect, and when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, Proliferate. Viruses, enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has Infect. Once again, probably the best choice is to chain our commander, and then we can always copy one of our opponent's really good creatures. Corrupted Conscience, probably another one of the best cards in the deck. Enchanted creature, and then you control enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has Infect. So, you're probably going to take one of the best creatures on the board, or probably one with flying, and then it has Infect. So, you should be able to take someone out if they can't kill it. Then we got 2 cards that work well with giving opponents poison counters. Sorcerer's Wand has Equip for 3. When a equipped creature has tap, this creature deals 1 damage to target player, Planeswalker. If this creature is a wizard, it deals 2 damage to that player, Planeswalker instead. Now we don't have any wizards in this deck as far as I know, but if we put this on an Infect creature, the Infect creature can always tap to deal 1 damage to a player, because a lot of times we may not be able to attack someone and give them Infect. But this is a way around that. And then Verdian Longbow is about the same thing, has Equip for 3. Equipped creature has tap, this creature deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Then we've got some cards to put +1/+1 counters on our creatures with Infect. Vastwood Fortification, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, but it's also a double-sided card, so the backside is a land, then there's battlefield tap, and taps are green. Flaxcaster Frogling has Graph for 3. You can pay 2, target creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, gains Shroud until end turn, which is great because we can protect our creatures with Infect. Retreat to Gazandu, landfall, whenever land enters battlefield under your control, you choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, you gain 2 life. Renata, Call to the Hunt, her power is equal to your devotion to green, and each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Durable Handicraft, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you can pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Then you can pay 6 and sacrifice it, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Bloodsport Thrynax has Devour 1, and each other creature you control enters the battlefield with additional X +1/+1 counters on it, or X number of +1/+1 counters on Bloodsport Thrynax. All these cards are great because we can play them early on, and then later in the game, when you play more creatures, they'll just keep entering with a bunch of +1/+1 counters. Then Alter Ego, it can't be countered. You can have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it enters with X additional +1/+1 counters on it. This is great because we can copy our Infect creatures, but make them bigger, or we can copy some other cards on the battlefield. Slippery Bogbender, Flash and Hexproof. When it enters the battlefield, put a Hexproof counter on target creature, then move any number of counters from among creatures you control onto that creature. This is great if we just want to put a ton of counters on one of our Infect creatures out of nowhere, or if we just want to put a ton of counters onto our commander. Then we've got some cards that can proliferate, so we can get more poison counters, -1/-1 counters, and +1/+1 counters. Thrumming Bird, flying. When it deals combat damage to a player, you proliferate. Guildpact Informant is kind of the same thing. Evolution Sage, whenever land enters battlefield under your control, you proliferate. Plane-wide Celebration, you choose 4, and you can choose the same mode more than once. Create a 2/2, return target permanent card from graveyard to hand, proliferate, or gain 4. Now, what you're going to do for this one is you're probably going to proliferate 4 times, and it's going to help a ton. Getting more poison counters, -1/-1 counters, is going to kill off a lot of stuff, and then getting more +1/+1 counters, you might be able to deal a lot of damage with your Infect creatures. Courage and Crisis, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then proliferate. Then Contagion Clasp, enters battlefield, you put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and you can pay 4 and tap it to proliferate. Then we've got some card advantage. Cold-Eyed Selkie, set Island Walk. When it deals combat damage to a player, you draw that many cards. So, that'll especially benefit if we put a couple +1/+1 counters on. Fathom Mage has Evolve. Whenever a +1/+1 counter is put on Fathom Mage, you can draw a card. Generous Patron, this is going to be so good for drawing cards, because when it enters battlefield, you support 2. But the best part is, whenever you put 1 or more counters on a creature you don't control, you draw a card. And we're always going to be putting -1/-1 counters on our opponent's creatures, so we're going to draw a ton of cards off of this. Primal Empathy, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card if you control the creature with the greatest power among creatures on the battlefield. Otherwise, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. Tezzard's Gambit, draw 2 cards, then proliferate. Caress of Phyrexia, target player draws 3 cards, loses 3 life, and gets 3 poison counters. Now it's probably not the best to use that in yourself, but if you need some cards you can. Or, if someone only needs a couple poison counters before they lose, you can use this on them. Then Villainous Wealth, target opponent exiles the top X cards to the library. You can cast any number of spells with converted mana cost X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. And then we've got some removal, but we shouldn't need too much because we already have a lot of -1/-1 counters. Viridian Corruptor has Infect. When it enters battlefield, destroy an artifact. Return to nature, you choose 1. Destroy an artifact, destroy an enchantment, or exile a card from a graveyard. Simic Charm, you choose 1. Target creature gets +3/+3 till end of turn. Permanents you control gain Hexproof till end of turn, or return target creature to its owner's hand. These are going to be great because the first one, you can make your Infect creatures bigger out of nowhere. Second one, can protect all your Infect creatures, or other creatures. And the third one, can always help you get rid of blockers. Tetsumak, Primal Death, it has Death Touch, and if you play a black and reveal it from your hand, put a prey counter on target creature, and activate that ability during your turn. When it enters battlefield, you destroy each creature your opponents control with a prey counter on it. So, this is going to be great with our commander, because we can reveal from our hand, put counters on our opponent's creatures, and then we can copy them with our commander, and then also when this comes in, it's going to kill them. Spread the Sickness, destroy a creature, then proliferate. Bane Whip Punisher. When it enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. If you pay a black and sacrifice it, you destroy a creature that has a -1/-1 counter on it, so it should be able to destroy a decent amount of creatures. Then fuel for the cause, use counter a spell, and then you get to proliferate. Then lastly, we've got lands. Dimir Guildgate enters the battlefield tapped and taps your Dimir colors. Dismal Backwater is the same thing, but you gain a life. Dimir Aqueduct enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, return a land you control to its owner's hand. And then it taps for both of Dimir colors. Then we got the same type of lands, both Simic. And then the same type of lands, both Golgari. Evolving Wilds. Tap it, sacrifice it. Search your library for your basic land card. Put in the battlefield tab and show up your library. Terramorphic Expanse is the same thing. Command Tower. Taps for 1 mana of your color. Rogue's Passage. Taps your colors. You can pay for it, tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Nesting Grounds. Taps your colors. Or you can pay 1, tap it. Move a counter from target permanent you control onto another target permanent. And only do that anytime you can cast a sorcery. If near Deadlands, taps your colors, or you can tap it, pay 1 life, and add black to your mana pool. Then you can pay 4, tap it, sacrifice a desert, put 2 -1/-1 counters on target creature and opponent controls, and only do that anytime you can cast a sorcery. So that card's not going to be super great, but if we really need some -1/-1 counters, it can be helpful. Grasping Dunes, taps your colors, you can pay 1, tap it, sacrifice it, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature, and only do that anytime you can cast a sorcery. Then let Jara Mirror Lake, enters the battlefield tapped and taps your blue, and then if you pay 5 and tap it and sacrifice it, create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and only do that anytime you can cast a sorcery. Once again, this is going to be great with our Infect creatures. Then we have 7 forests, 7 islands, and 6 swamps. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.